Hi, good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday, happy hump day. Good morning, good morning. Today, I wanted to bring you guys an update on the Karmelo Anthony case. So let's get started here, you guys. We have some news. We have some news on the Karmelo Anthony case. So, a new legal team files substitution of counsel to pursue the appeal for Karmelo Anthony. I shared this on my page. Let's get to it. Here we go. So it reads, a new legal team files substitution of counsel to pursue appeal for Karmelo Anthony. Breaking news, a team of leading appellate civil rights and criminal defense attorneys announced today that it has taken on the case of Karmelo Anthony, who was recently sentenced to 35 years following his murder conviction and the death of Austin Metcalf. The team serving pro bono, you guys, will review the trial record and pursue all available avenues of appeal. Leading the effort are Russell Wilson, the law offices of Russell Wilson II. We also have Gary Bledsoe, the Bledsoe Law Firm, and president of the Texas NAACP, Michael L. Ware, the law office of Michael Ware, Brooke Cluse, Ben Crump Law Firm, Sean DeRata from the DeRata Law Firm, and Justin A. Moore from the Stafford Moore Law Firm. Our appellate team has been retained following the conviction to conduct a fresh, independent review of the trial record. We recognize the profound loss suffered by one young man's family and the uncertainty facing another, and we extend our respect to everyone whose lives have been forever changed by these events. Our responsibility is to determine whether a legal error occurred and to ensure that every issue supported by the record is fully and rigorously presented on appeal. The appellate process exists for precisely this purpose, you guys. Here it is. For immediate release, stands with Karmelo here. Let's hear about some of these. Let's hear the backgrounds of this legal team that he has now. Let's see here. Next slide. All right, here we go. So Russell Wilson II is a Dallas trial and appellate attorney. Who has been board certified. I'm sorry. Good morning. Good morning. Did I say good morning already? Good morning. I am having some coffee in my Grand Canyon mug. I love this mug. Also, I love the Grand Canyon. I have visited quite a few national parks. I have a list of, I don't know, I would say like at least 5 I've visited. I'm a trail girly. I love the trails. Just a little bit about me. Okay, so let's continue on here. So we have Russell Wilson. He was selected to direct the Dallas County District Attorney's Conviction Integrity Unit, described at its founding as the first of its kind and in the nation, and has argued state and federal cases on both the trial and the appellate levels over a career spanning 3 decades. Then we have Gary Bledsoe. Gary Bledsoe has served as president of the Texas NAACP since 1991 and as a member of the NAACP since 2003. He's Austin based. He's a Texas guy, Austin based. He's admitted to practice before the U.S. Supreme Court and the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. He served as the acting dean of the Thurgood Marshall School of Law at Texas Southern University. Wow. His awards include the Johnny Cochran Trailblazer Award of the Minority Caucus of the Civil Rights Section. Huh. Then we have Michael Ware. So Michael Ware is a he's board certified in criminal law since 1990 with 4 decades of trial and appellate experience in state and federal courts. He founded the first conviction integrity unit in the United States while serving in the Dallas County District Attorney's Office. He is a 2-time Percy Foreman Criminal Defense Lawyer of the Year. He is a Champion of Justice Award recipient. All of these attorneys are very accredited. Here, next, Brooke Cluse serves as a litigation attorney and the chief of staff to Brent Crump. Chief of staff to Brent Crump, who we know is a civil rights defender. Then we have Sean DeRata. So I have interviews queued up for Russell Wilson and this Sean DeRata person. He is a nationally recognized criminal defense trial attorney with over 100 jury trials under his belt. His practice focuses primarily on murder and capital murder. He secured a full acquittal for his client charged in the capital murder of former University of Oklahoma and NFL player Devonta. Oh, shit. He further made history as the lead defense counsel in the first Tren de Aragua capital murder. He was the lead defense counsel in the first Tren de Aragua capital murder. Interesting. Okay, so I have interviews queued up for these two, which I am going to get to today. We have a lot to get to. Thank you for being here. I am just going to go ahead and let's get started with these. Let's get started with.
Funny. The man has jokes.
He's funny. Okay.
These clips I have.
My Uber's 6 minutes away.
Okay, so we have quite a few clips queued up here, okay? First one I want to go over is obviously the new news here about these legal attorneys. Let's go to that clip.
That was
No. This is a good one. This is a good ass clip, you guys. Oh, look, Hideki Matsui. That's Matsui, right? Hell yeah, that's Matsui. Oh shit, he's got Matsui up in there. Okay. This is an absolutely amazing clip. Shout out to Vinnie Politan, whatever his name is, Vinnie. Not Napolitan. Vinnie Politan. Shout out to Vinnie Politan. He actually had a very good discussion in this video, which we're going to get back to. But what I want to show you guys is here we go. This is the one. Okay.
There are new developments in the case of Karmelo Anthony, who was sentenced to 35 years behind bars for the murder of Austin Metcalf.
Yes, tonight a high-profile legal team announced they will be representing Anthony. NBC5's Ali Spilliers is live with the latest on this. Now, Ali, what does this mean for the next phase of this case?
Well, Brian and Brittany, this comes less than 2 weeks after Karmelo Anthony filed a pauper oath, basically a request to the court for an attorney, saying he could no longer afford one. That came the same day that he filed a motion saying he intends to appeal his conviction. This team of 6 prominent Dallas, Fort Worth, and Austin-based lawyers say they're coming together to represent Anthony pro bono. The team's headed by former Dallas County prosecutor Russell Wilson. It also includes Michael Ware, the director of the Innocence Project of Texas, and president of the Texas NAACP, Gary Bledsoe. Despite numerous requests, the team told us they are holding off on interviews for now, but they did release a statement saying, in part, we recognize the profound loss suffered.
Wait a second. Good morning, Amy and Blue, my favorite people. Yes. Okay. Did you guys just hear that? They refuse to make any interviews, any statements, as they should. As they should. I love that. Remain quiet. No interviews. We don't want to hear it. We want them to work diligently. No rushing, because you know exactly what they did at trial. They rushed the shit out of it. The judge rushed the shit out of that trial. And I love this, that they're not going to speak to anyone. Take your time. Take your time. Don't rush it. Let me go back to what it
profound loss suffered by one young man's family and the uncertainty facing another. Our responsibility is to determine whether a legal error occurred and to ensure that every issue supported by the record is fully and vigorously presented on appeal. A couple of weeks ago, one of the attorneys now representing Anthony told me that this process takes time. He said an appeal likely wouldn't reach the 5th District Court of Appeals until the end of the year. If they have to move to the state or federal level, that could take even longer.
Okay, so you hear that. It's going to take some time. It's going to take at least a year. Minimum a year. I'd say minimum a year. Okay. Now, let's listen to this one too. I want to hear what The View had to say about it. This might get a little controversial. I just want to remind everyone in chat, just be respectful. I allow everyone to have a difference in opinions here, because that's number one. Freedom of speech is number one and foremost. I believe in it. And I practice it. So please just be respectful.
Now there's new footage that has been released of the moments after high schooler Karmelo Anthony fatally stabbed Austin Metcalf at a Texas track meet in April of 2025. Take a look.
You're not on the inside. Okay. He put his hands on me. I told him not to. He put his hands on me.
Notice how this body cam footage is completely off with the date and time. Look. It's dated February 10th, 2016.
He was sentenced to 35 years in prison, which he's appealing. The case has a lot of people divided. Some people believe that race was...
Congrats, Amy. How the hell you got 88 so fast? Congrats.
...a factor in the trial because there were no black jurors. They were all the 3 black jurors that were there were educators, and they were released.
They were struck.
For that. And some folks think, no, he got a fair trial. But is this a jury of his peers?
I don't think so. And this has been an issue for such a long time in the judicial system, where prosecutors use what are called, Batson challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And they
explain what that is.
It's a challenge that is used to strike a juror. Generally,
it's a strategy. It's a strategy that attorneys use, both defense and prosecution, because they know that, hey, juror number 2, juror number 3, seems a bit biased. It seems like they're not going to give us what we want. So let's go ahead and you're allowed that challenge, so to speak.
A juror of color for a race-neutral reason.
Right.
Because you're supposed to have a jury of your peers, and you're not supposed to just strike someone because they're black. And in this case, they gave the reasoning that they're educators, and this happened, these were high school students, and this happened at a school track meet, so they couldn't be impartial because of that. I don't think that's an appropriate reason.
Might be the best ones too.
Yeah, I don't think it's an appropriate reason to strike black jurors, especially when it's a young black teenager on trial, and especially when that particular area is made up of 10% of an African-American community. So I don't think he got a jury of his peers. So I think on appeal, there is a legitimate thing.
I agree with her. I think on appeal, this is going to be, again, what Wilson stated and what the Crump side stated on that statement we just read. They stated they are going to review. They're not going to review new evidence. That's not what this defense team is going to do. They're going to review the trial records, which means only what was presented at trial is what they're going to review. And they're going to review it for legal errors, including something like this.
A legitimate reason. I also think we have to look at self-defense here, because there seems to be two systems of justice at play in this country. And there have been for a very long time. I was part of the system, so I understand that, and I believe that to be true. In this case, this young man, you heard him say, he put his hands on me, and I told him not to. The kid that died, and I have so much empathy for him and his family's loss. That kid was 200 pounds. This kid was 130 pounds. And so, and the other kid was also taller than he is. He was the only black kid under the tent. And the victim here had his twin brother with him, who was also a very large person. If you don't fear for your life, if you weigh 130 pounds, I weigh 130 pounds. Facing somebody that's 200 pounds, I would be terrified of that. So I don't understand why self-defense was rejected by this jury.
I agree with a lot of what you're saying, especially the jury representation. That's what stood out to me. And we know there's plenty of evidence that there's sentencing disparity with people of color. The one thing to me, though, is what is the fair sentence when you take a life? And this is what I'm struggling with, because this is a tragedy across the board. A 17-year-old is dead. A 17-year-old's going to...
This is a good discussion here.
Likely spent 35 years in jail. He could appeal at 17. Yeah. What would I'd be curious what you think, because I wrestle with it. If it was, God forbid, anyone in my life, I would think 30 years seems about right. If they said life, I'd say that's too long for a 17-year-old. He could be rehabilitated.
Look, I think 35 years, if there is no self-defense claim, which is an absolute claim to this crime, absolute defense, I think that would be appropriate.
See, I agree with her there too. I feel that would have been appropriate if there was no self-defense claim. But the issue we're having here, where there's gray areas, is related to the self-defense, right? Was there an actual intent, or was there self-defense?
But if you look at other cases, there was the other case where there was a young black kid who was chased by Rick Chow, a store owner, accused of taking water bottles, which he didn't take, the 4 water bottles. He chased that young boy 130 yards, which is half of a football field, and shot him in the back.
You guys heard about this story? Rick Chow. I'm going to play it real quick.
Then the system should fail.
But they're very similar self-defense
Sonny,
claims.
I had a question, because I was wondering why the self-defense claim didn't work. And I had read that it said you have to use the same amount of force that was brought against you. So if someone pushes you and you push them back, that's self-defense?
That's not the standard, because it's not only use, but attempted use.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
So if you felt your life was in danger and you felt he was going to do more than just push you, and you weigh 130 pounds and you're outweighed by 70 pounds, so you can use.
You know what? When I looked at this case, though, which to me is just sad every which way, right? There's two two families that are destroyed. There's, Austin Metcalf lost his life. Karmelo Anthony's going to spend at least 17 years in jail. So this is just tragic. But my question is, how did this get to this point, and where the hell were the adults?
Yeah.
These were two 17-year-olds.
Yeah.
I mean,
I feel that the coaches in this case, in this incident, they should be held accountable to some extent, to some level, to some extent. They should be held accountable. What do you mean? There's actually, that police report, I just keep reading it and reading it, because in that police report, it's either the police report or witness statements that I'm gathering from articles, right? Because I don't have the transcripts yet. The witness statements, or it could be the police report. I have to read it again. You guys, the coaches said that they saw it, that they saw the incident. If you physically saw it, why didn't you stop it? If you saw it, why didn't you stop it? Is what I'm not understanding here. These coaches should be held accountable to some extent, in my opinion.
What I understand is, it is normal for runners to, go under tents.
My kids were runners. You always do that.
And so there was some conversation that he was told to leave, and he was saying,
well, he had been invited under the tent by a friend.
Yes.
He had been invited. One last thing, I know we're playing the music, but Austin Metcalf's the victim, the deceased. His father went on a podcast, and listen to it for yourself, but he called Karmelo Anthony a racial slur. And he also said that the reason that Black people weren't on the jury is because Black people are unable to hold bias from the trial because they don't know their own fathers, have a bunch of baby mamas running around living off of government assistance. So that is the thing. That's the thinking of the victim's father.
Well, let's not say that was the victim's
I'm not saying
thinking
it was the
as well.
Of the victim.
Good.
Okay, yeah, I chose not to play those racist comments. For what it's worth, yes, Austin Metcalf, his family, Austin Metcalf, of course, is a victim here, and we don't talk about victims like that. We don't do that. And their fathers, his father as well, I consider their family to be victims of this as well. I am aware about the things that he has said, and I chose not to play that here. And it's very sad. It's very sad that it's turned out that way. So what I want to do now is I want to share my screen, and we are going to read this article via LA Mag. It is interesting to see the continuous same playbooks of police and prosecutors in different cases, faulty body cams, overcharging the defendant, cherry-picked. Yes, what is going on? Like, what is this? And it's not a black and white thing, Blue Devil, because they did it to Brian Kohlberger. They did it to Brian Kohlberger, so it's not a, minority thing here. I think it's like if you have power in the town, and it's a small town, and if you have this power and money, you can actually do whatever you want, Okay, so let's get into this article here via Lauren Conlin. Here we go. Let me just share this. I just want to share this out. Just 1 second here. Just want to share this link out on Twitter and get more, people, more eyes on this. We want more eyes on this, of course. And okay. All right, so here we are. Let's get started. Carmelo Anthony's appeal begins as Austin Metcalf's father speaks out. Again, unfortunately, not unfortunately. I mean, I can't really say I've never been in the position that this family has been in. I'm talking about the Metcalfs, but it seems like they're being super vocal. They're speaking out a lot. They're being super vocal with the media. So Austin Metcalf's father says he's never received an apology from the Anthony family. Carmelo Anthony, the Texas teen turned felon, convicted in the fatal stabbing of 17-year-old Austin Metcalf, has assembled a new team of prominent appellate attorneys. This comes just weeks after being sentenced to 35 years in prison. In a new press release, the group says it will independently review the trial record and pursue every available avenue of appeal. The announcement Monday came after a Collin County jury convicted Anthony of murder in the April 2025 killing of 17-year-old Metcalf. Additionally, newly released surveillance video, police body cam footage, and other evidence from the case have been released to the public. We covered this on my last live. Take a look at it. I am also going to play the body cam footage with captions so that we can take a look at all that was said. Excuse me. The brutal footage and evidence are what jurors viewed during the trial. According to a statement released by Anthony's new legal team, the attorneys will serve pro bono and will review the trial record for potential legal errors that could form the basis of an appeal. Again, they're only going to review the trial records. They're not going to review any new evidence in this case. Oh, shit. I thought I was sharing my screen. That sucks. My bad. Here we go. Thank God I looked. Okay. There we go. All right. So, yeah, my bad. The announcement Monday came after a Collin County jury convicted Anthony of murder. We read that already. According to a statement released by Anthony's new legal team, the attorneys will serve pro bono. We read that already. I just wanted you guys to see that. Our appellate team has been retained following the conviction to conduct a fresh independent review of the trial record, the attorney said in a statement. Our responsibility is to determine whether a legal error occurred and to ensure that every issue supported by the record is fully and vigorously presented on appeal. All right. The group includes Dallas appellate attorney Russell Wilson. I read off his resume. Bledsoe, Sean DeRata, Justin Moore. The attorneys also acknowledged both families in their statements, saying they recognize the profound loss suffered by one young man's family and the uncertainty facing another. Again, the announcement coincides with the release of dozens of exhibits from the trial, including surveillance footage from the track stadium and body cam video from responding officers. The surveillance video, recorded from a distance and without audio, captures the moments immediately after stabbing during a rainy high school track meet in Frisco. The footage shows a figure identified during trial as Anthony running down the stadium before the footage shows Anthony running down the stadium bleachers before stumbling, getting back to his feet and continuing to run around the track. We're going to watch the body cam footage showing he surrendered to the police before becoming emotional. He put his hands on me, he says. I told him not to. He put his hands on me. We're going to look at that again. Jurors ultimately rejected Anthony's claim that he acted in self-defense. Appearing Monday on Fox News host Will Cain, Austin Metcalf's father, Jeff Metcalf, said he has never spoken with Anthony's family. He's never spoken with them, he says. And he believes they have shown no remorse. See, I don't know about that because during the what's it called? The sentencing, the victim statements. There you go. During the victim statements, the mother, Karmelo Anthony's mother, was crying and telling the court, "Have mercy on my son." And she even said, "My son is very sorry for this. He's very sorry for this," she kept saying. I don't know. I don't know what the dad is doing here. The dad, I don't know. Honestly, like, I can't even say. I've never been in that position. I don't know his pain. I don't know his pain. I feel terrible. I don't want to talk badly about him at all. Okay. So he goes, they weren't there for the sentencing and they were not there for victim. This is weird because, see, this is something I'm hearing. I'm hearing reports that the defense attorney didn't prep them. You're supposed to prep the victims' families for the sentencing. It was the defense attorney who rushed the sentencing. That's why it's never happened. If you go to Google and you Google, when has there ever been a sentencing? Check this out. Has there ever been a sentencing and first degree? Wait, has there ever been a first degree charge, no, verdict and sentencing on the same day? All right. Verdict and sentencing on the same day. Let's see what it says. Same day sentencing for first degree murder typically occurs under 3 specific conditions: mandatory sentencing laws, straight plea guilt, and defense waives the PSI. What's PSI? The defense waives the PSI. Both the prosecution and defense can agree to skip the preparation of a pre-sentencing investigative report if they know the outcome cannot be legally altered. What is that? A judge cannot sentence a first-degree murder defendant on the same day if the prosecution is seeking the death penalty. Oh, they weren't seeking the death penalty. They weren't, though. And, excuse me, it says here, if state law mandates exactly one penalty, for example, life without parole, the judge has no legal leeway to change the time frame or scale of punishment. Straight plea guilt. If a defendant enters a straight plea, but he didn't enter a plea, I don't know, but we're going to allow this team, we're going to just take a step back. We're going to, good morning, Jules. What's up, my love? How are you? We're going to take a step back. We're going to allow his dream team, Karmelo Anthony's dream team of lawyers, to figure this out. Because the fact that they returned a first degree verdict in less than 2 hours, and then he was sentenced right then and there, like boom, sentence, victim impact statements, boom, boom, boom. That shit is weird. I don't know about you guys, but that shit was weird to me. And if it had been you, I don't think you guys will be comfortable with that. I don't know. But Metcalf is saying they left the poor child up there by himself as soon as the verdict was read. But here's my thing. The defense attorney didn't prep them. Do you guys know that Karmelo had saved a kid from drowning? Karmelo saved a kid from drowning. They reached out to that kid that Karmelo saved. They reached out to the parents of that kid. And the mom says that no one reached out to her. No one in Karmelo's camp was reached out to come to court and make a victim impact statements. And that's the job of the defense attorney, you guys. This is horrible. This is horrible. Absolutely horrible. So they left that poor child up there by himself. So here's what the Metcalf is spewing right now. Like, God, like just stop it. Come on, just stop. You know, go grieve, go mourn. But why come out here on national TV blasting this family? Why? You know? I don't know. The Metcalf also criticized what he described as efforts to inject race into case following the stabbing, as well as blasting The View's Sonny Hostin for monetizing his son's death for clicks. I don't know, like I understand, like you wanna respect, you wanna keep your kid's legacy intact, you wanna respect everything, but the truth is we don't know the truth. The truth is the truth has not been revealed yet. You know? Here's what, when they talk about sudden passion, we're gonna get into this. I have a couple more interviews. Metcalf died in the arms of his twin brother Hunter. Despite attempts by coaches and first responders to save him, there was multiple 911 calls were released where a coach can be heard saying, "Stay with me, Austin, stay with me." That was heartbreaking. I admit that was freaking heartbreaking, hearing the coach just fighting for his life, man. For Austin's life, I mean. Trying to keep him alive. The jury did not buy it was self-defense or even sudden passion. Okay. All right. So now let's go into this. 1 second. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Okay. So we're going to listen to this attorney. This is wild. Check this out. Some things he says here is whoa, whoa, whoa. We need to listen to this, you guys.
Lines up. The judicial branch is part of our government. It doesn't belong to any judge. It doesn't belong to any lawyer. It belongs to the people.
Now, Vinnie was the prosecutor. Vinnie used to be a prosecutor. The fact that he's coming out and speaking like a defense attorney, I was like, okay, Vinnie, because he's a former prosecutor. And throughout this episode, you're going to hear how he has like a defense mindset. Listen, it's really crazy. I learned a lot from this one.
Speaking of people, something else happened in this case. The judge issued a gag order, which...
Lucy, stop it. Lucy, stop.
There's a First Amendment right to speech, and the gag order is something that should be narrowly addressed. And Austin's father, his son was stabbed to death, and he hasn't been able to talk about this. Well, he finally did. in a live stream that everyone is talking about. A whole roller.
See, why? Why? Don't do this. If you want to protect, I mean, who am I to tell a person how to grieve, right? Who the fuck am I? But if you want to protect the legacy of your son, zip it. That's it. Talking about watermelon felon, all this stuff. Like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. No.
Coaster of emotion and issues that he is talking about. And some of those pieces of what he's saying, extremely controversial from both sides, and everyone is reacting to this. So let's start there.
No.
There was
I don't
a
want to start
podcast
there.
on Rumble from
No, I don't want to start there, Vinnie. We're skipping
the
that
beginning.
part.
I said this was not about race. I tried to, I guess, extend an olive branch by going there to meet, to talk, to discuss this together, not to not make this a racial case. And that was part of his point in what he was saying in these rants on the live stream. I want to put something else up for you here, because Carmelo Anthony's parents have now spoken. They went on the Breakfast Club, an extremely popular radio / podcast show. Mimi Brown said, and that's who's interviewing them, what did Carmelo tell you happened that day at the track meet? This is Drew Anthony, what he says. I mean, he was sitting there seeing his friend. If you once get the reports and everything, he was actually, his girlfriend's cousin invited him to the tent. So they went, invited him to the tent. It was just, hey, what's going on, such and such. It was raining. He sat there. Then the next thing you know, you have these two guys who approached him. Even seeing the video in court, it was like, I know y'all see this. And this is the part that stuck out to me, is that Drew Anthony, Carmelo's father, says, hey, listen, that video shows what happened. But the question is, did it? Okay, so let's bring in Court TV anchor Cody Thomas, who was there in Texas, was there inside the courtroom, and actually saw this video, because this is the problem, right? We had no cameras in the courtroom. The evidence hasn't been released. So the public is...
Lucy, he called him a watermelon felon. There's t-shirts out, there's Carmelo's Anthony face, but a watermelon face, bro, I can't. He wasn't holding out.
Going by what people are saying, and there are a lot of people out there with an agenda on both sides who can describe what they believe they saw. Cody, you have no agenda other than telling us what you saw and what you observed. So why don't you describe for us what you saw when the video was played and what was testified to about that video? Because this is an important piece of evidence. And, you know, you've got people saying that it's very clear in the video what happened here.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is the most important piece of evidence. It's kind of the crux of the whole case here. But the thing about this video, Vinnie, and the prosecutors admitted this before it was presented while that forensic video analyst was on the stand, is that the video is not the best quality.
The prosecution admitted. Are you guys hearing this? The prosecution admitted before showing the video, saying, you know what, this is not the best quality, but this is your evidence. What do you mean it's not the best quality? This is your evidence literally showing us that it wasn't self-defense, that Carmelo Anthony attacked Austin.
It's, first of all, it's one of those, you know how a football stadium is set up and you have the big tall light post to light the whole stadium. It seems like it's a camera on one of those light posts on the opposite side from where everything's going down. So when it's zoomed out, it looks pretty good quality. But when you have to zoom all the way in like this on a little blip, you know you're going to lose a lot of pixelation there. It's going to be really grainy. So they zoomed in, and you know now it looks like video you see at like a 7-Eleven. It's real grainy. You can kind of make out what's going on. You can see the yellow memorial tent. But
He said a gas station video, 7-Eleven.
again, they admitted there's no real distinguishables here. You're not seeing facial features.
They admitted there's no real distinguishables here. You can't make out who anyone is underneath that tent. You're not seeing facial features. You guys hearing this? He was at court. This guy, Corey, he was at court.
You're not seeing the logos of brands on clothing. So it's just a low quality video. But you see at one point in time, you see in the bleachers, you see the yellow tint. It's kind of at the center mass of the video. And then they zoom out just a tad so you can see Karmelo come up out of what's like the tunnel of the bleachers. You know, when you come up and you go sit around, he's coming up from under there. You see him come there and he stands there for a few seconds. And then he's walking towards this direction. So the tent's right here. He's walking towards the tent here.
Right.
He's there at the tent for around 2 minutes. Then eventually you see Austin.
Corey is explaining that he's literally saying that you first see Karmelo walking into the tent, and then eventually you see Austin, right? So I mean, people keep saying that Karmelo was not there before Austin. But the way I keep seeing it is that he was, in fact, there before Austin. So it's just conflicting. All of this shit's conflicting, and it's not making sense how the jury was able to return a verdict so quickly with this footage that you can't even make out anything. All right? So I guess we just have to step aside and let the Dream Team deal with this now.
Metcalf and his 3 or 4 friends who were walking from the middle school where they were visiting their coach for a little bit that morning, they're walking from the opposite direction. So Karmelo's here for 2 minutes. They get there, and then the whole ordeal goes down in like 4.
See, like even Corey, even this guy that was at the freaking court during trial, he's telling you that he first sees Karmelo entering the tent, and then you see Austin.
4.5 to 5 minutes. But under the tent, you got to remember there's a whole team under this tent. You can't see rainfall. All you see is there's people under a tent. They look like these humanoid blobs. You can tell they're human beings, but it's just a bunch of masses, right? You're not looking at who's sitting down, who's standing up, especially if they're intermixed in there. You know, maybe if they're at the front, you can see if they're sitting on the bleachers, but all in the crowd, you can't really see much of anything. And then what the media analyst highlights at one point in time, you see kind of one of these darker figures. There's like a jolt. And so they're saying that was kind of like the push. And then right after that little jolt, you see everyone disperse. And then of course they spot shadow. This was Karmelo because the other,
how does the jury just see this bullshit and say he's guilty? I don't know, guys. I don't know.
Memorial's team was in some dark gear because Karmelo had on a gray hoodie type situation. So he was in lighter clothing. Then you see him run off and they spot shadow him. And then you just see a bunch of disbursement. There was no, you don't see 2 hands, 1 hand sitting down, 2 people towering over. There's not really any real identifiables other than there's Memorial tent. Here's a bunch of people under there. This is what they say was a little jolt, which was the push, and then a bunch of disbursement. That's all you really see.
So sometimes, and I've seen this in trial,
There's just so much to this, right? There's so much to this. If you listen to Austin Metcalf's interview a year ago, it was like a year ago, immediately after this incident, Austin Metcalf says that, Hunter Metcalf says that Austin takes Karmelo's backpack. I'm not hearing Cody explain this. I'm not hearing the part where Austin pulled Karmelo's backpack. I'm not hearing where exactly when does Karmelo put his when does he reach for the knife? If Austin now has Karmelo's backpack, when did Karmelo reach for his knife? Was the knife open? Like, when was that? When did that happen?
You go through a video and you may play it for different witnesses who were there. Mm-hmm. And then they, having been there, looking at the video, can kind of describe to you what's happening. Mm-hmm. Did any of that take place to try to clarify exactly what is going on and whether or not Karmelo Anthony is surrounded whether or not, a physical confrontation it's you can really tell how forceful the physical confrontation initially is.
I mean, in a very minor capacity, Vinnie. I mean, because you got to remember, all of these students that testified under the state said there was no sort of surrounding that was happening.
Right, but you also have to remember that all of these students are Austin's friends. All of these students are Austin's friends. Of course, their testimony is going to be biased. Of course it is.
Happening. It was described as, this kind of one-on-one thing. And, actually in the closing arguments, the prosecutor was saying, they're trying to say the two brothers or all these multiple people were jumping on him. But on the body cam with the video, once he was apprehended, he was saying, I told him not to put his hand.
Yeah, but okay. I'm tired of hearing this. I am so sick of hearing this. All you hear all over social media. Oh my God. Karmelo says Karmelo wasn't jumped. Karmelo wasn't jumped. Karmelo says no. Karmelo says I told him. Karmelo says I told him not to touch me. Karmelo doesn't say they. Karmelo says I told him not to touch me. Listen to this part. I'm gonna get to my point, but listen here. Listen to this.
That testified under the state said there was no sort of surrounding that was happening. It was described as, this kind of one-on-one thing. And, actually in the closing arguments, the prosecutor was saying, they're trying to say the two brothers or all these multiple people were jumping on him. But on the body cam with the video, once he was apprehended, he was saying, I told him not to put his hands on me, not I told they.
This is the stupidest argument I've ever heard. Let's start there. How stupid this argument. They're pulling at straws. They're pulling at anything. They are pulling at anything. I'll tell you why it's stupid. Because yes, you could be jumped. Yes, you could be jumped. But the context, what's the context here? The context is Austin being hurt. Not five other brothers being hurt, not five other kids being hurt. It is Austin being hurt. Why would Karmelo say, I told them, if it was Austin who was hurt? You guys understand what I'm saying? I told him because Austin was the one that was hurt, you guys. Of course, he's not going to say, I told them not to touch me, because not all of them are hurt. It is only Austin. Look how they're taking this they're just taking his statements and creating this narrative. They're taking what Karmelo said, I told him not to put his hands on me. And they're saying, oh, wait, he wasn't jumped. He said him, he wasn't jumped. Am I making sense here? Am I making sense? Of course he's going to say him. It was Austin who was hurt. Of course he will. We're going to the room.
Not to put their hands on me. So that was a big deal in the closing arguments. But there was one student that got up there who was actually on the field warming up. And so you saw an angle of, a couple of kids on.
Denise Walker, he knows. Cody knows. Yes. You can't just be saying
on the field, and you saw the angle of.
Listen to this again.
I mean, because you got to remember, all of these students that testified under the state said there was no sort of surrounding that was happening. It was described as, this kind of one-on-one thing. And, actually in the closing arguments, the prosecutor was saying, they're trying to say the two brothers or all these multiple people were jumping on him. But on the body cam with the video, once he was apprehended, he was saying, I told him not to put his hands on me, not I told they not to put their hands on me. So that was
okay. So that was a big what?
That was a big deal in the
That was a big deal in closing argument. You guys, this Howard the Duck, this freaking Mike Howard attorney had nothing to say about this? Because I would have immediately said in closing arguments, I'm like, wait. Why would Karmelo Anthony say them? It wasn't all them that was hurt. It was only Austin. Of course he says him, because it was only Austin that got hurt. What in the world is happening here?
Closing arguments, but there was one student that got up there who was actually on the field warming up. And so you saw an angle of, a couple of kids on the field, and you saw the angle of where the tent was. And what they were trying to do there is kind of talk about how this student's timeline of when he walked over and saw the commotion just didn't add up, and trying to kind of discredit his credibility a little bit. But no students were sitting there saying, yeah, that was me. You see me walking there, and then you see this push, and you see this person to the left, and they're moving up the bleachers. There was none of that real specificity, other than that one student on the field, just to show that his times weren't lining up when he said he walked over there, because they showed that he didn't walk at all when the moment of the stabbing happened.
So none of the witnesses who testified, right? Some of the people that were there didn't testify, but the ones who were called and testified that were under the tent, near the tent, all of this, none of them could specifically identify themselves in that video?
No.
Are you guys hearing this shit? They couldn't identify themselves.
No, there was one that, because he was kind of off to the side. We're talking under the tent right now, where the commotion comes up, and then there was one kid that said, "You see me coming over here," but he was very isolated. You know what I mean? He had nothing really to do with the situation happening under the tent, which is why we were here in the first place. But other than that, none of them were saying, "That's me. You see me over here. You see this is Karmelo right there. They're the Metcalf brothers." The only thing that was really identifiable was when the forensic media analyst showed Karmelo walking to the tent, and then showed the Austin Metcalf and the other boys walking to the tent.
Now, something about this is, do you know that when the expert that the prosecution, because again, the defense didn't do shit. The defense didn't hire an expert to review this footage. It was all the prosecution. The prosecution had 20 witnesses to the stand. Defense had about 3 witnesses to the stand. No experts, bro. So again, when the defense attorney's expert was on the stands, I'm sorry, not the defense attorney, the prosecution's expert was on the stand. He testified that the state hired him to review the footage and to spotlight and highlight when Karmelo enters the tent. So we see that. We see when Karmelo enters the tent, we see the spotlight so we can clearly, visibly see. And then the defense, during cross-examination, the defense goes to the expert, says, okay, I see you spotlighted Karmelo Anthony walking into the tent. Why didn't you highlight and spotlight the incident, like the fight, the actual fight happening underneath the tent, so we can see, like, have a clear shot of it? And guess what? The expert says, well, that's not what the state asked me to do. Of course, the state wouldn't ask you to do that. The state's not going to ask you to show the incident. Are you kidding? They're trying to hide that, in my opinion, allegedly. But that part was insane when I heard that testimony. And another thing I want to say.
Once things got to the tent, it was just, yeah, that's a crowd of people. You can't really tell what they're doing. You can't really tell that there's violence, or if it's horse playing, or if it's just.
Right. You can't tell if there was a violent attack. You can't tell if Karmelo was attacked, and you can't tell if Austin was attacked. And who, you can't make out who. So how was this evidence admissible?
People standing in the crowd. You can't really tell anything until they highlighted that little, they zoomed in real hard just to see this little whoop, like that. And they were saying that's the push. And then 3 or 4 seconds after that is when all the, you see kids running in every which way. You see Karmelo run 3 or 4 bleachers up, and that's where the knife.
Oh, I remember what I was going to say. What I was going to say is that when the expert testified, could you believe this has been going on for a year? Again, this incident happened a year ago. The expert literally said that they did not get the footage until 2 weeks before trial. 2 weeks before trial was when they got that footage. Could you imagine that?
Was found about 3 or 4 bleachers up from where the stabbing happened. Then you see him run down, and he's running towards the track, and they zoom out and they show him just running near the fence line. But other than that, no one's sitting there saying, that's me, I was here. It was just their account of what was going on, but not related to the video, because we only watched the video at the beginning of the trial before some of these witnesses took the stand. The video was not played with every single witness. You know what I mean? So that wasn't the crux of the direct examination by the state once those student eyewitnesses took the stand.
Okay, so did the defense use the video that way at all? Did the defense show the video to the jury either during argument or during a direct or cross of their own witness or another witness and say, this is where Karmelo is surrounded?
They didn't do.
That's crazy. That's crazy, because how are you going to prove self-defense and not show the video? That's crazy to me. I don't know
that at all. And there's been a lot of criticism regarding the defense of Karmelo Anthony here with 6 witnesses, a couple of student witnesses. One of those student witnesses that actually admitted that he believed Karmelo was the aggressor, a defense witness saying that. But the defense didn't use the video in any capacity, which they didn't do that. They didn't explain even why he had a knife in the first place, which I thought that was something they would try to harp on a little bit, just saying, he had it because he liked to go camping. He had it because, you had to cut nylon if you're setting up the tent. They didn't even touch on why the knife was even there in the first place.
They didn't even touch on whose knife it is. First of all, I call it, I don't call it a knife. I call it a switchblade. I don't know. That's just me. I have one of those, a switchblade. I don't call it a knife because it's not like a regular knife to me. I don't know. I just call it a switchblade. Anyway, the point is, we don't even know whose it was. Who did it belong to? We don't know. There was no forensics. There was no forensics presented. Was there any DNA done on the knife? What? Chain of custody. Chain of custody. Who had the knife? Where did it go? Nothing. Isn't that crazy? First degree murder? Isn't that insane? There's no forensics. Also, another thing. The evidence that was released to us, to the public, they're only showing the medical examiner, the diagram they complete with, all the wounds, explaining the wounds. Austin had a 2-inch wound to his chest. Okay. We saw that here. I can show it again. 2 inches, 2 inches, 2 inches. In my opinion, I don't think he intended to kill him. 2 inches. 2 inches deep. What I'm trying to say is that, what's my point here? We don't have the medical examiner report. All we have is the diagram. All we have is a diagram showing the wounds, that it's 2 inches deep, and where the location of the wound is. That is it. We don't have the actual report, and you guys know what the fuck I'm talking about. There's an autopsy report that's attached to a diagram. Where is that autopsy report? We don't have it. That's weird. That's weird.
A lot of missed opportunities and holes in the defense's case, and especially after they ended somewhat abruptly. But to your point, Vinnie, the video was not shown during the defense's case in any capacity.
And did they have any witness, either through their cross-examination or the direct examination of their own witnesses, who described Karmelo Anthony being surrounded or being confronted by a group?
Nothing like nothing group, nothing like that. There were multiple people. They all kind of described the same situation. They got into there. A lot of people were asking them to move.
But it doesn't have to be a group. It can be 2 or 3. Like, why are you asking group?
Defense's witnesses now. Just want to reiterate, asking them to leave. They saw commotion. They're looking around. They weren't scared. They just thought it was 2 boys, kind of going at it, saying whatever else to each other. But it was all
2 boys, not a situation of, I'm not going to say a gang, but a group of individuals, whether it's 2, 3, 4, sort of surrounding or physically confronting or intimidating all at the same time, all standing up and kind of getting around him.
None of that was testified to. There was testimony about Karmelo was still sitting and Austin was standing up, but it wasn't Austin and Hunter. It wasn't Austin, Hunter, and X, Y, and Z and all this different stuff. It was more so just those 2 boys, whether Karmelo was standing or sitting. The defense says he was sitting. That's the fact they were going on in the case, trying to say that, Austin was towering over him and Karmelo was trying to be calm and everything. But every account was that it was these 2 boys, nothing more.
Okay. That's not what I see, honestly. It's not what I see.
Okay. So here's another question. And this is a bigger picture question.
Shout out to Vinnie for these questions because he's really challenging here. He's really challenging Cody. I like the questions he's asking. That's why I'm playing it.
Right. And obviously at Court TV, we believe cameras should be inside every courtroom in every case across the country. It should not be denied, but it is. Everyone has their own rules. Here in Texas, it's judicial discretion, so it's up to the judge to decide whether it comes in or out. If there was a camera inside that courtroom, do you think it would be clearer to the community, to the public, exactly why he was convicted?
Absolutely. If the public had transparency and heard just the sheer preparedness from the prosecution, every time the defense tried to get the ball rolling, the prosecutor had something ready to go. And in the way he presented his case, Vinnie, I mean, I know you're a former prosecutor. You understand how these strategies work. It was very simplistic and digestible for the jury. For example, the defense called this one witness who was a student who knew Karmelo, went to school with Karmelo and talked about,
See, that's what if you go back to my lives, I thought that of the defense. I'm like, is this defense attorney okay? Or is this defense attorney just trying to simplify things for the jury? Because there weren't many objections. There were not many objections by the defense in this case, you guys. Let me chat GPT it. How many objections were made by the defense team in the Karmelo Anthony case? I'm going to chat GPT it because there weren't many. And that's the problem. And when I'm reading into the appeal process, I'm reading about the appeal process. And according to the appeal process, the appellate attorneys, the appellate judge, all right, the chat GPT cannot tell me. They're only telling me that there was a Batson challenge, which we know, which is the only fucking good thing he did was the Batson challenge, because with that, I'm so glad the defense did the Batson challenge. Because with that Batson challenge, the appellate attorneys, they have a case. They have a case because there was a Batson challenge done. There was an objection to the jury instructions regarding the provocation and self-defense. The judge overruled the objection. Oh shit. So the defense brought up an objection to the jury's instructions regarding provocation and self-defense, and then the judge overruled. Oh, wow. A motion for a direct verdict after the prosecution rested and the judge denied. An objection seeking to include criminally negligent homicide as a lesser included offense in the jury charge, and the judge overruled the objection. Oh, interesting. Okay, let's continue with this video.
There was an argument about the tent culture, how tents were like locker rooms and you shouldn't be under them and this and that. This student was saying, no, track meets were very social. I'd be under the tent for 15 minutes with some of my friends if I saw them. I've actually been under the memorial tent with Karmelo. So he's going through all of this different stuff. And then the prosecutor gets up on cross-examination, is like, oh, so, they're very social. Yes, sir. If someone asked you or asked you to leave their tent, would you have stuck around? No, sir, I wouldn't. I probably would not have done that. So, I mean, there's the answer right there, right? Just simplistic questioning. Are you surprised that a knife was at a track meet? Yes, sir. Knives don't really come to track meets. No, sir. Were you surprised that, your teammate was the suspect here? Yes, sir. Just all of those sorts of simplistic, no matter how the defense tried to paint something. And, there were some moments where I was like, okay, the ball's rolling now. And as soon as the prosecutor gets up there, it's like, it's almost like he was trying to play more of the common sense, sort of play here. But I think if cameras were in there, public transparency always, as you said here at Court TV, is always important when it comes to these trials, so the community can understand and, not be so polarized. I mean, of course, there's going to be opinions and judgments on both sides, but I think it would have helped them see why this conviction came and he was ultimately.
But where we are now, it's like the reaction to this, it's really caught my attention. Again, this is a TV interview. We have the audio. Let's take a listen.
I have seen from other cases around the country where cameras in the courtroom changed the way that the judge acted, the lawyers acted, some of the witnesses acted, and we were not going to have that here. We were going to really isolate the purpose for which we were here for, which is to have that fair trial, and cameras in the courtroom did not enter into that equation at all.
Objection. Judge arguing facts not in evidence. If you're a judge and a camera's in your courtroom and it changes the way you judge, that's your problem. That's not the problem with transparency. That's a problem with the judge. If a lawyer does anything other than try their case because a camera's in there, that's their problem. That's their mistake. That's their inability to be professional. But I'm surprised on a couple. All right, the judge didn't want cameras in the courtroom. I get it. We're going to talk about that, and I always talk about that. But he gave an interview about a case that just ended. Is this normal? Is this what always happens? Every state in our union has their own little set of local rules and practices and ethics, etc. So I didn't practice in Texas, so I've got to bring in one of Texas's best. He is a criminal defense attorney, special prosecutor, and probably the best criminal.
He's a criminal appellate attorney in the state of Texas, you guys. This is what we need to hear. We need to hear this. This interview is boom. I'm not sure why no one else is listening to this. I haven't seen this go around. Vinnie, good job.
Appellate attorney in the state of Texas, my friend Brian Wice, who I've probably known you longer than any other guest in the history of all my years at Court TV, Brian.
What I found doing what we do is never to argue with the host and kind of suck up. So yeah, Vinnie, you couldn't be more correct. Look, you and I have known each other longer than most people who've been married. Certainly most of the people that you and I know have been on the air with. A couple of quick takes. Number one, I know Judge Roach. I met Judge Roach when I was a special prosecutor in the Ken Paxton case, investigating and prosecuting the Attorney General, now Republican nominee for junior senator.
Ken Paxton case, who is now a senator. Hold up. Hold on one second.
You and I know been on the air with. A couple of quick takes. Number one, I know Judge Roach. I met Judge Roach when I was a special prosecutor in the Ken Paxton case, investigating and prosecuting the Attorney General, now Republican nominee for junior senator, because that all happened initially out of the Collin County Courthouse where this trial was.
Wait,
And I heard nothing but
Court TV, Brian. Hold on.
You know, what I found doing what we do is never to argue. A couple of quick takes. Number one, I know Judge Roach. I met Judge Roach when I was a special prosecutor in the Ken Paxton case, investigating and prosecuting the Attorney General, now Republican nominee.
Okay, he met Judge Roach when he was prosecuting Ken Paxton, who is now a senator. You got that?
For junior senator, because that all happened initially out of the Collin County Courthouse where this trial was. And I heard nothing but good things about Judge Roach. I maybe even met him at a seminar. But number one, when I talk to judges and lawyers and prosecutors at seminars about dealing with the media, it's one thing for a prosecutor or a defense attorney to go on the air. I don't think there should ever be a case where a judge, the guy that calls balls and strikes and wears the dress and everything, should go on the air unless it's in some educational capacity. And
why do you guys think he did it? Why do you guys think he went on air? What was it that he had to prove, right? What did he need to prove to go on air?
I know what this judge's clip was not particularly incendiary. That's the other take. I could not
Wait, incendiary? Hold on a second. Incendiary? Okay, you guys are going to the room because you're not behaving. Okay, so that word incendiary means a substance, weapon, or remark that is specifically designed to cause fires or strongly inflame emotions and ignite conflict. What? Listen to what he just said. He used that word. Let's go back. Oh, shit.
I don't think there should ever be a case where a judge, the guy that calls balls and strikes and wears the dress and everything, should go on the air unless it's in some educational capacity. And I know what this judge's clip was not particularly.
Okay, he's saying the clip was not particularly incendiary. And what that words means is to cause drama, basically to cause drama. Okay.
Incendiary. That's the other take. I could not disagree with him more. And again, I think, Vinnie, you and I, are.
He said, I could not disagree with that. Oh, shit. So he's saying the opposite. This defense attorney is saying the complete opposite, that he feels as though the judge was trying to ignite some drama. Oh, shit. Listen to this.
It's in some educational capacity. And I know what this judge's clip was not particularly incendiary. That's the other take. I could not disagree with him more.
You guys hearing that? Oh, shit. He's putting this judge on blast. He's saying, yeah, you're trying to ignite some drama. You're trying to ignite some shit. Oh, wow.
And again, I think, Vinnie, you and I, are cut from the same cloth because we're old Court TV alums back in 93 and 94. And you make a great point, not just to suck up. If you as a judge, if you as a jurist are in any way, shape, or form impacted or affected by the fact that there's a camera, which is so unobtrusive that I find.
Denise, Vinnie is loving this. I'm telling you, Vinnie is probably a defense attorney. Like, I don't think he was a prosecutor. He is thinking like a defense attorney in this episode. It's crazy.
People forget about it in the first 90 seconds. Then you should not be behind home plate in Game 7 of the World Series. You ought to be.
This guy is a baseball guy. He got Hideki Matsui. He's talking balls and strikes. This is my kind of attorney.
You work at Chick-fil-A. The other thing is that if you are going to let witnesses or advocates play to the camera, and again, you know, the three most cliched things in America, French cuisine, Notre Dame football, and lawyers playing to the camera, nonsensical at best.
It is. You're not playing to the camera. You're playing to the jury. Like, the lawyers are playing to the jury. The jury makes the decision. The jury decides whether they win or lose. That's who they play to. I mean, I've covered, like, this isn't the first high-profile case that we've covered through the years. You know, there was another one that had sort of the racial tension that this one had, involving a victim named George Floyd. And the judge in that case, Judge Cahill, the state of Minnesota had never had a camera in a courtroom, but Judge Cahill was smart enough, knowing that case for that community and for the nation was important for the nation to see the evidence and hear it so they could understand the verdict and understand the way the evidence went in. And whatever you believed about the evidence in the case, the bottom line was prosecutors won that case. Their expert was amazing. The defense expert was meh. And that made a huge difference in the case. And that's what the transparency showed. And if you don't agree with it, you have a basis to not agree with it because you get to see and hear everything. Will this be a problem, the fact that the judge spoke about a trial right after? My father was a federal judge. And, you know, the rules were you don't talk about any case. You don't talk about any case that still is open to motions and appeals, et cetera. Judge Belvin Perry in that case down in Florida involving.
No, I know, Denise. I know he's a former prosecutor. I'm saying the way this episode, how he handled himself in this episode and the questions he was asking, he had the mindset of a defense attorney, in my opinion. But I know he's a former prosecutor.
Kaylee Marie Anthony, the victim, he spoke after he retired, and that was a case where it was a not guilty verdict, so there were no appeals, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what are your thoughts there? Is that going to be any sort of a lingering issue potentially, or nothing? It's just more of he decided to do it. Maybe it wasn't in the best taste, but he did it anyway.
I agree. I mean, I think hashtag rookie mistake. In the panoply of potential legal issues that this case involves, and there are a couple of good ones.
We're going to talk about those in a minute.
Exactly.
But how about this one, though?
Not at all. It was an innocuous, 45-second bite that had nothing to do with the merits, that did not call into question the judge's impartiality. Because in addition to talking to lawyers and judges and prosecutors all throughout the country on dealing with the media, one of the other things that I've kind of become like, the expert on, and, remember what Mark Twain said about experts, experts just some guy from out of town, is trial court recusal. And, what will get you bounced, quicker than anything I can think of. And going on the air and talking about a pending case or an issue even likely to come before you. One of the cases that I talk about was, unfortunately, an incredibly tragic case, the Oklahoma City bombing case. And the first federal judge assigned to that case decided that he was going to go on Nightline, a program back in the day that was a pretty big deal with Ted Koppel. And I think most members of this gen are like, Nightline? Is that like a nightlight? And the judge ended up getting recused. Why? Because he evinced a take, if you will, that while not directly impacting a bias or prejudice, certainly in the minds of a member of the public, and this is what the test is, whether a reasonable member of the public on 6th Avenue between 52nd and 53rd, knowing all the facts and circumstances, would have a reasonable doubt about that judge's ability to be fair. Now, Judge Roach's clip, no big deal. Would not, as his consigliere, have advised him to do that. Right. But so what?
Well, so let's get back then to the focus of the part that we played, which is that the issue of cameras and transparency and the impact it has. Because what we've seen in the aftermath of this case is everybody is talking about the evidence like it showed something, and there's opposite interpretations of evidence, and it's nothing that the public has seen for themselves. We're only hearing about it through people who have their own bias or spin on it, one side or the other. It doesn't matter. And the public didn't get to see it in a case that is charged the way this one is charging the community and dividing the community, and people seeing it so differently. No one actually got to see it except for the few people who stood in line and got into the courtroom. And to me, that is the travesty here, is that it's a public courtroom. It doesn't belong to the judge. It doesn't belong to the lawyers. And there should be an ability for the public to be able to see it. Like, it doesn't interfere with anything other than provide transparency.
And, I'm going to quote noted legal sage Woody Allen. I think it was in Bananas. This is a farce of a mockery of an outrage of an injustice. Look, there were only a handful of seats, number one. And the people who were in there
what did they just say?
Provide transparency.
Bro, listen.
And, I'm going to quote noted legal sage Woody Allen. I think it was in Bananas. This is a farce of a mockery of an outrage of an injustice. Look, there were only a handful.
This attorney is saying it was an injustice, bro. What?
The seats, number one. And the people who were in there were, other than members of the media, virtually everybody else kind of had their own agenda, because this case has been on, TV and the internet more than Flo the Insurance Lady and Leave It to Beaver reruns. And some of these people, and this is a legal term we use, Vin, are morons. I mean, just don't understand it. And what Judge Roach could have done is that he could have done what a lot of judges do when they don't want to send out the actual trial over broadcast TV, is to create what we call, and I know you're familiar with the term, an overflow room, where members of the media or members of the public can watch.
Yeah, why didn't he do something like this? Come on.
The trial in real time, and it's a closed circuit TV feed that's not going to be distributed.
Yeah, but for court TV, that's like, we went to the prom, but my date was my cousin. Like,
exactly.
It's not perfect, but at least more eyeballs get onto the evidence, and maybe you'll have some more perspectives of it. But to me, the ultimate thing is it's the people's courtroom. It doesn't belong to anyone else. And I know you're trying to balance all this. Just give me a short answer on this one. Did you agree with the gag order? Because one of the other things that has happened now is that Austin's father finally got to speak, and it was raw, it was emotional, it was wow. But he was not permitted to speak beforehand. I'm offended by that, because I believe in the First Amendment. I believe it's first for a reason. What are your thoughts about gagging people who are not the lawyers in a case?
Wrong from here to there. Stevie Wonder can see that. The leading case in Texas on gag orders in criminal cases, if I can say so, is my case. It's a case called In Re Benton, involving a killing that happened about 5 minutes from my house, involving a 16-year-old high school student who looked like a young Angelina Jolie. We got it set aside. It is the law. I actually represented Dallas County Criminal District Attorney John Crusoe, a good friend, about 30 miles down the highway from where the Anthony case was tried, when a judge tried to hold him in contempt for violating a gag order that had more holes than the freaking Iraqi Navy. No, gag orders. I've never seen a gag order that could ultimately withstand review. And
this guy's analogies kick ass.
Ultimate sanction, the ultimate backstop for people who run their mouths, is the inherent power of the court to punish for contempt. I don't believe in gag orders any more than I believe in the tooth fairy.
So a notice of appeal has been filed by Karmelo Anthony, and that is the precursor to filing the actual appeal. So as you would expect, you're convicted of murder. You're sentenced to 35 years. You probably want to see if you can get a new trial, a second look, a second chance at all this. So Brian Wice, you're an appellate expert as well. And that's, anytime I have a question about Texas law, you're on speed dial. I don't know if I still have speed dial, but if I still had speed dial, you'd be on it.
Be on it again.
Let me start with the first issue that I was shocked by. And again, I didn't get to actually see the testimony because the judge did not allow us to see it. But the reporting is that each eyewitness kind of finished their testimony by saying this was not
I would say more holes in a $2.
self-defense. Is that okay? Because I thought that's what the trial was about, and I thought that was the question that the jury had to answer, whether or not it was self-defense.
What's crazy, Denise, in his freaking in his interview, in his the judge is like, oh yeah, I'm retiring. Must be nice, huh? I can't.
Witnesses in their testimony tell the jury in their own opinion that it was not self-defense?
Right.
The short answer is they're not supposed to.
Right.
And this is one of the ironies or oddities, if you will, about the criminal justice system. The only kind of criminal case where a layperson can give the ultimate opinion as to guilt or innocence is, of all things, a DWI case or a DUI, as they say in some states, because everybody knows what intoxication is. Self-defense is a question of law that ultimately the jury decides based on the facts. Now, a witness can testify. You can't, I don't think you should be able to answer a shove with a stab like Bill Worski so ably argued. Or you could say that I believe that Karmelo Anthony had an opportunity to retreat, that is to leave the tent. But I was shocked that these lay witnesses, if you will, were permitted to testify as to the ultimate legal conclusion.
Right. The witnesses were literally asked, do you believe this was murder? And they said yes. Of course, this is Austin's friends. They're going to say yes. Do you believe this was self-defense? They said no. And so the defense allowed that type of questioning is kind of, and the judge as well allowed it. So there was no objections made on record. So not sure. This is weird.
That's an issue, but it's interesting because I thought the issue that I thought you were going to lead with is the Batson claim.
Oh, all right. Well, I know you want to go there. So, but let's just start here. Is that a big deal? The fact that the witnesses said this was not self-defense, 0 to 10, just give it a number, how big of a deal it is.
On its own, on the merits, it could be a 7, but if I could just kind of throw something in.
100%. The jury selection is number 1 on my list. The jury selection is number 1 for the appeal. They have an argument there for an appeal because of this Batson challenge. So yes, Vinnie, what are you talking about? The jury selection should be number 1. Yes. And this guy says at number 7, he says, so from 1 to 10, a rating of the importance, he's basically giving you a rating of 7 from 1 to 10. Listen, let me back it up for just a second. Here we go.
That's an issue, but it's interesting because I thought the issue that I thought you were going to lead with is the Batson claim.
Right.
Oh, all right. Well, I know you want to go there. So, but let's just start here. Is that a big deal? The fact that the witnesses said this was not self-defense, 0 to 10, just give it a number. How big of a deal it is.
The first
on its own, on the merits, it could be a 7.
Okay, the 7 from 1 to 10, a 7 on the self-defense claim could be a problem. Okay.
But if I could just kind of throw something in that I think your viewers would want to know about the appellate process. Appellate courts don't sit to review questions of guilt or innocence. They review whether or not the trial was fundamentally fair based on legal rulings that the
Exactly. Listen, this is good. This is where we're going now. This is what the appellate team, Karmelo Anthony's dream team, is going to face, right?
court made. And there's something called the harmless error rule. And that's because nobody's perfect. We recruit all the participants, the judge, the prosecutor, the defense lawyer, the witnesses, the cops, from the human race, which means there's going to be human error. And so there are going to be mistakes. And because the Constitution doesn't entitle you, not even in New Jersey, to a perfect trial, you're entitled to a fair one. So I believe that while that could be classified as a legal mistake, what we call error, E-R-R-O-R, an appellate court could find that based on the allegedly overwhelming evidence that it didn't impact the outcome of the proceeding. But again, that's a potential issue. Make no mistake.
Yeah, I thought it was a big issue because like it wasn't just one witness; it was like witness after witness after witness.
Right,
So let's
right.
get to what you
Right,
thought
right.
my lead was going to be, and
Okay.
I was debating.
It is an issue. It is an issue about each witness stating that no, it wasn't self-defense. Yes, Karmelo Anthony murdered him. No, it was because you hear that from all of these witnesses, right? So he says from 1 to 10, 7 as it being an issue. Okay. Now we're going to go on to the Batson challenge, which this is an interesting section too.
Debating between the two, the fact that there were no black jurors, and you talked about Batson challenges. Let's talk about that. What's going on there? Is that a real issue in this case at the appellate level?
That is, as we say in journalism, that's the lead that you don't want to bury. And I know that enough of your viewers have probably binge watched Law and Order or seen you on the air talking about what Batson is. But Batson comes from, I believe, a 1984 Supreme Court case called Batson versus Kentucky, and that has been modified over the years, that essentially says that while a prosecutor can exercise as many challenges for cause as he or she can, that is based on a juror's inability to follow the law, that they can only exercise their peremptory challenges for reasons that are not related to race.
Yes.
Or for any racial reason or for any racial pretext. So what in essence this case presents, is I understand it because again, I followed it, but I followed it on, this device right here. Is that there were 3 black potential jurors.
That's the thing. Like even the judge is saying, listen, I followed the case. We all did. And then we followed it with, media, like bias, mainstream media reporting, some independent reporting, which I love. Shout out to all the independent journalists out there, because they're not paid by mainstream media and they have a voice and they can actually like say what they want to say what they're they have the upper hand because independent journalists are able to speak on their perspective rather than the guy who's signing my checks. You get what I'm saying?
What we call veneer members in Texas, who were struck by the prosecutor peremptorily, meaning for no reason at all, is based on their 10 that both sides get in Texas in a felony. And once the defendant, in this case, Mr. Anthony's lawyers make what we call a prima facie case. Judge, on the record outside the jury's presence, now that the jury's seated, I want to note for the record there are no African-American jurors. And I want the court to note for the record that the prosecutor exercised X number of challenges on black jurors. At that point, the court will say, fine, the defendant has made a prima facie case. Mr. Worski, I want you to tell the court for the record why you struck those black jurors. And my understanding is that they were struck because I think they were not necessarily teachers, but educators who might have felt sympathy for a 17-year-old kid if they're around 17-year-old kids all the time. Now, once that happens, the prosecution has initially rebutted that claim that you used your challenges improperly. It's then incumbent upon the defense attorney, and this is where it's tricky. You have to show that potential jurors, veneer members, who were similarly situated to these 3 black educators who were struck, were not struck and they were white. So my understanding is that there were white veneer members who may have been teachers or educators who were not struck.
That's the problem here, you guys. This is where the appellate case, they have a strong appellate. They're going to have a strong appeal because there was jurors that were also teachers, educators that were not struck. That's unfair.
If that's the only reason I love that issue.
That's a home run, right? So you have black teachers, white teachers, prosecutors get rid of the black teachers, but don't get rid of the white teachers. And then all of a sudden their reasoning for getting rid of the potential black jurors kind of falls by the wayside because you didn't, everything else is the same.
Exactly.
Except the fact of what
treated
color their skin is.
Right. And the word that we use, you use the legal expression falling apart, which I like. It's called a pretext. That basically this is, BS. And I have one back.
All right, 0 to 10, give me a number because I have one more issue I want to get to.
8 or 9.
Whoa,
Okay.
whoa, that one's high. That one's an 8 or 9. That argument about the Batson challenge is 8 or 9, you guys. Wow.
So that's a big
This is coming from an appellate attorney. This is an appellate attorney.
one. That's a big one. All right. The final one, everyone talks about this all the time. I know some lawyers don't like it. Ineffective assistance of counsel.
I knew. Look at you.
Brian Cole, Ann Taylor, where you at, baby? Where you at, baby girl? Ann Taylor, come and listen to this, baby.
My dad used to say when I would answer a question, he didn't think I could answer. He'd say, "You just look like you don't know anything." Well, Vinnie, mazel tov. I thought that was beyond your keen, as we say. That's a great question.
Ann Taylor, come on down, baby girl. Come on down, Ann Taylor.
And this is why. I have done, as an appellate lawyer and post-conviction writ lawyer over 4.5 decades, a bunch of ineffective assistance, motions for new trial, direct appeals, and post-conviction writs, including a death penalty case that I won 20 years ago in the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. Let me tell you what the problem is that lawyers like me who involve themselves in ineffective assistance cases are basically like internal affairs, like the shoe flies, the rat squad. Why? Because what you're doing is you're claiming that defense attorneys are morons, prosecutors are cheaters, and judges are ignoramuses. And as you can tell,
are they not? Are they not?
I can tell by that Jersey smirk, it's going to make you a widely popular guy. You're going to be
Jersey smirk. See, Vinnie. Oh, Vinnie. We here, Vinnie, because we're from Jersey, baby.
as popular as P. Diddy. And so it's a very touchy subject, particularly 1, high profile case, 2, racial element, 3, I don't know about the lead lawyer, this guy named Mike Howard, who we can talk about in a minute, but second chair counsel is a guy who I know, who I've lectured with, who I've put on CLEs, a guy named Toby Shook. And when he was a prosecutor in the Dallas County DA's office, he was a legend. He was a cult figure. And one of the, it's a small world after all, sound bites from this trial is that he and Bill Werski go back forever. And they were special prosecutors in an incredibly high profile case right down Interstate 35 from this courthouse, where a judge and his wife were killed in Kaufman County. So they've been together. They've been on opposite sides. I think Toby's a great lawyer. I'm not sure how much Toby actually did in this case, again, because there were no cameras in the courtroom. Mike Howard.
Howard the Duck. Howard the Duck.
I don't know the guy, so I'm not going to opine, but I know this, that with
This guy from Texas doesn't even know Howard. Could you imagine? Could you imagine? Usually these defense attorneys all know each other. He's like, I don't even know this guy. I don't even know Howard the Duck.
all of the money that the defendant and mom and dad were able to amass via Kickstarter, GoFundMe, whatever it was, and there was a lot. There are other lawyers, not just in the Metroplex, but within Texas, who I would have hired.
Listen to this. Listen to this. I don't understand who gave Karmelo's family this Mike Howard guy. Like, who referred Mike Howard to this family, dude?
High school, probably pound for pound, not just one of the best lawyers in Texas, who also happens to be, coincidentally, African-American and from Fort Worth. or
Yeah, he needed a brother. He needed a brother attorney. I'm sorry. Something.
lawyers from my part of the state, Dan Cogdill, Ken Schaefer, Derek Hollingsworth, Rusty Hardin. Those are the guys who I think the call probably should have gone out to. But to your point about ineffective assistance, let me tell you what point one under ineffective assistance is. Well, I'm going to ask you. I'm going to be the host. Vinnie, thanks for joining us today. What do you think the best claim of ineffective
I love this freaking attorney. What the hell?
assistance is that Karmelo Anthony's new lawyer will have?
Did not prepare for the punishment phase.
Oh my
of the
God, look
trial,
at you.
presented no case.
Golf clap. You're
So I got it right. I got it right.
Hit it out of the
All
park.
right.
Hit it in the Crawford boxes. No question. And yeah, I think anybody who, again, wasn't in the courtroom but followed the case knew that. My understanding is that they called mom, asked her a couple of questions, and then said, thanks for being on the show. I have been successful. I've been blessed over however many years of winning a number of cases, and serious cases, including Galen Walby, the only then death row inmate from Galveston, in the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, which is kind of like climbing Everest in your shorts, based on the failure to investigate and prepare for
It's like climbing Everest in your shorts, he says. I can't.
punishment stage. This is why this matters, and this is why I like it with the but that we'll talk about in a minute. What most lawyers don't understand is that most cases are punishment cases, that the defendant in a felony case is the visiting team down by 3 scores in the first period. Full stop.
I love when he talks it in baseball terms. Yes, I get it. All right. Listen to what he says again. You're at a disadvantage. Most lawyers don't get that. Listen to what he says.
I like it with the but that we'll talk about in a minute. What most lawyers don't understand is that most cases are punishment cases, that the defendant in a felony case is the visiting team down by 3 scores in the first period.
Full stop.
Full stop.
That's Karmelo Anthony. You're the visiting team. Down by 3. What he says? Visiting team. You're losing. You're coming in this with a disadvantage already.
And if you have not prepared,
it shouldn't be that way. Our justice system should not be that way. The burden should lie on the prosecution 100%. It shouldn't be this way.
for the eventuality, for the virtual certainty of a punishment hearing, then again, you've got no business in a courtroom. That means lining up a smorgasbord, a cavalcade, a panoply of mom, dad, aunts, uncles,
dogs, sisters, brothers, pets,
cousins, siblings, coaches, teachers, people who knew this kid best, number one. Number two is I also think this kid's 17. And what we like to tell jurors in a situation where we've got a youngster is that our lives are motion pictures. They're not snapshots. Do not judge this 17-year-old kid whose brain may not be fully formed on the worst day of his life, which means you need an expert.
Boom. Boom. The defense attorney had no experts. To testify that this is, not only did he have epilepsy, he just had a surgery, could have brought in the doctor, show us the surgery documentation, an expert, a psychologist. Tell us the brain. Tell us the 17-year-old brain. How does he react in this certain type of situations?
You sit this kid down with a shrink, a psychologist or psychiatrist, to talk about how he's young, what he may have thought was reasonable, and how the best cure for crime is old age. To me,
the bottom line for that is, listen, you're not arguing for innocence at that point. What you're doing is trying to mitigate the damage, mitigate the punishment, and get him sentenced to something less than 35 years.
Real quick in the chat, Denise, I'm hearing this the same too. Dominique Alexander, was a publicist for the Karmelo Anthony. Am I getting that right? Was he a publicist or hired by the Karmelo Anthony? And I saw text messages. I don't know how accurate it is. So Dominique and Dad are no longer fighting. They're no longer speaking. Like there's drama there, isn't there? Defense was ill prepared. I totally agree with that. And I said that when I first started the live. Could you imagine? I found out that he saved a life. I found out that Karmelo saved someone's life. You think they'd call the mother, right, to testify? No, nothing. I didn't know this part, though. This part I need to research. I didn't know that there were defense experts that were denied. Thank you for that. Thank you. Yeah, I'm telling you, it's like Brian Kohlberger all over again. Down to the weapon. Down to the weapon, Lucy.
Years and closer to, I don't know, 10 or 15.
Exactly. And that's a great point. And this is what's key. In Texas, we have a system involving murder versus manslaughter. And so back in the day before the law changed like 25 years ago, a jury could consider manslaughter is a separate crime with a separate punishment range of 2 to 20. The legislature said, now let's just make it a punishment issue. So you get found guilty of murder during the guilt innocence stage, and then at punishment, you get what's called a special issue. If you find from the evidence that the defendant acted as a result of sudden passion arising from an adequate cause, that is the kind of response that anger, rage, terror, or resentment would bring in an ordinary person. Can't believe I remember that. Then this is manslaughter.
Yeah, but the jury denied sudden passion. That means the defense didn't make an argument for sudden passion. Why not?
And the penalty range is 2 to 20. While you can litigate that, and generally do litigate that during guilt innocence, you can also litigate it during the punishment stage. I didn't see anything at all, nothing, zero, zip, nada, that was related at all to the special issue. And when you have a cap on 20, it's a lot different than a cap on 99.
When you have a cap on 20, meaning your misdemeanor charge, with that charge, your limit is 20 years. When you have a cap on 20, that's different than a cap on 99 or life, you guys. Is this not?
Or life.
Big difference. Take a look at this photo. This is Karmelo Anthony's newest mugshot. And looks a little different. Looks a lot different. Shaved his head, obviously. But when you compare the initial mugshot with the subsequent
So the initial mugshot, right? I looked at this and I don't see the initial mugshot. I'm not seeing any bruising to him, right? I mean, it could be airbrushed, but I don't know what this is here. I don't know. I don't know if that's the lighting. You see how if that's the lighting, but I'm not sure.
Mugshot. You can kind of see the transformation of someone who's newly arrested to someone who's now been convicted of murder and going away to prison for 35 years. But what does 35 years mean in the state of Texas? Brian Wice, what's the reality of 35 years in prison in Texas for someone who at the time this occurred was a teenager, was 17 years old?
Let me put it to you like this, Vin. I'm not sure that Karmelo's parole officer has been born, but maybe his parents are dating right now. The reality of it is that Karmelo has to do 50% day for day. So do the math. What is that? Like 17 and a half before he even takes a peek at the parole board. And as the judge instructed the jury, eligibility for parole does not guarantee parole. And the problem that you have with high profile cases, and I've seen it in a number of cases, not the least of which was the Susan Wright case that Court TV covered back in the day, is that the parole board doesn't like high profile defendants. And so the problem you're going to have is you can continue to get what we call set-offs. And parole in the Texas system, what I would suggest is that, and it's obviously premature, is there are lawyers, a couple of good ones. Most of these guys are scam artists, three-card Monte people, but there are a couple of good ones who I really think this family could think about hiring in the next, decade.
Well, now we know that this was aired. Obviously, this was aired prior to, when was this one done? 11 days ago. Okay, this is 11 days ago. The court was, this attorney was already, saying, hey, I think that the family should hire an attorney in the next, decade and a half.
Decade and a half, Ben.
Let's put aside the notoriety of the case. If this was a regular case, when I say regular, I mean a case that doesn't capture the nation's attention, right? And it's a 17-year-old, gets sentenced when he's 19, doesn't really have much credit or whatever.
Okay, so
what are the factors that the parole board will consider 17 and a half years down the road?
Well, I think first and foremost is acceptance of responsibility, which is problematic for any defendant who comes in and pleads not guilty and says, I was wrongfully convicted, I didn't do it. So I think age, prior criminal history, acceptance of responsibility, remorse, and then how the victim's family feels. And again, I alluded to the Susan Wright case. Susan Wright was a housewife in West Houston in 2000.
Okay, we're moving on.
Everyone loves chicken nuggets. But Anna,
this clip, thank you, Vinnie. That was a very good episode and person you had there. Now, this clip I am playing is via NBC Dallas Fort Worth. And what I am going to show here is this was aired 2 weeks ago. Here is one of the defense lawyers. Here we go. This guy here. That guy is, let me get his name right. Hold on. I was going through some footage and I realized that the attorney was actually interviewed, but of course, he wasn't the attorney. This guy was not the attorney then, but he was interviewed. So I want to hear what he has to say. This is Sean Daradia. Sean Daradia. Okay, that's this guy here. And now, as of yesterday, he was hired to be a part of Carmelo Anthony's team. All right, so let's listen to what he has to say
and how this verdict came down. Shannon?
Yeah, Meredith, we've been speaking with defense attorney Sean Daradia and former state prosecutor and all.
He's a former,
this, and we talked live
former
with a
state,
closer look at what
former state prosecutor. Okay, interesting.
We've been speaking with defense attorney Sean Daradia and former state prosecutor and all of this, and we talked a little bit about that instruction. And Maria Guerrero just reporting that the paper copy of the punishment for the jury instructions has just come down. Again, all of this wrapping up the sentencing part of those closing arguments, Sean, around 4:30.
Henry, hi, Henry Kitchen, man. Thank you for joining. You missed my comments on this. If you just want to back it up a bit, I think this statement that Karmelo said on the body cam footage is being taken out of context and a narrative is being created. Yes, you are correct. Karmelo said he put his hands on me. Karmelo did say he put his hands on me, but you're taking it out of context because Austin is hurt. Of course, he's going to say he put his hands on me. He's talking about Austin, who was hurt. Not the whole group was hurt, because otherwise, if they're if the whole entire group was hurt, he would say, they put their hands on me. Them, they put their hands on me. Think about the context, which he is saying this. He said he put his hands on me because the context is Austin. He was referring to Austin. The incident was Austin because Austin was hurt. So that narrative, I debunked it 10 minutes ago. Back it up.
7 this afternoon. We went to sentencing, and Karmelo Anthony, the defendant, still not called in all of this. A lot of people asking, why didn't he take the stand? Are you surprised by this still?
I am surprised. I am shocked. I am utterly confused. At sentencing, you want to humanize your client. That gives you the best opportunity to get him the best outcome, to get him the least amount of prison time. Without Karmelo testifying, without him talking to the jury, they can't see that remorse. They can't feel that remorse in his heart, in his voice, in his eyes. They can't humanize with him. And without him taking a stand, him being able to connect with that jury, that gives a jury no reason to give him a lesser sentence. And I think strategically, the defense didn't want to call him for whatever reason, but I think it was a big misstep because he's already been convicted of murder. That's done. He's been convicted. You have nothing else to lose at this point. And if I had been on that team, I would have called any and everyone. I mean, teammates, friends, people that have interacted with him, because the jury really needs to, at this point, connect with him. They need to see a human. Right now they've convicted him as a murderer. Well, when they go back for sentencing, you want them to not see him as a murderer, but as a child, as a friend, as a brother, as a community leader. And I think the jury needed to hear more. And I think you mentioned earlier, what do you think the sentence will be? I can't give a number, but the fact that the jury didn't hear from those witnesses, they didn't hear from Karmelo, I think that potentially may lead to a large prison sentence for him.
And coming down with that verdict in just a matter of hours could be just as quickly here with that sentencing. Sean, we appreciate your insight.
And now he's been hired. And now he's been hired to as one of his lawyers to represent Karmelo. I completely agree. He didn't, I get not testifying. Because you're at the risk of the prosecution cross-examining you and asking you some questions that as what was he, 19? As a 19-year-old, he probably would not have been prepared for these questions, right? For the prosecution gunning him down and saying things like, oh, you did this, right? Oh, so that means you murdered Austin. This is not self-defense. You murdered Austin. I understand why the defense did not place Karmelo on the stand to testify. However, what this attorney is stating here is totally different. He's talking about the sentencing part of it, where at least you're able to speak, you speak and show how sorry you are, show remorse that you didn't mean to, you didn't intend to take his life. And he's right. So now I'm going to head over to, we're going to take a listen to the lead defense. We're going to listen to the lead defense attorney here. Let me pull that video up. So again, the lead defense, he was interviewed prior to the trial. Here we go. I think it's this one. Yeah, it's this one. This
and overnight curfew.
This aired 3 weeks ago, right? So this was prior to the trial, right? Now we're going to listen from the defense attorney, Morris. Let me get his name right. Wilson. I don't know why I said Morris. Sorry. Russell Wilson, like the quarterback, Russell Wilson, the second. Okay, so this is the lead defense attorney in this case now. Let's listen to him.
Takes effect at the Collin County Courthouse in less than an hour. This is as heightened security remains in place for the murder trial of Karmelo Anthony. The teen is accused of fatally stabbing 17-year-old Austin Metcalf at a high school track meet in Frisco last year. NBC5's Meredith Yeomans was at the first day of jury selection.
Tight security.
Yeah, no one's claiming he's innocent. He said he did it. He said he did it. Girl, airbrush book. Lucy, am I right though? Am I right? Lucy, am I right? Am I right? I don't know because I have another shot of his face. So I don't know if he was airbrushed. I'm just saying. I don't know. You never know. His attorneys could have prepped him if he was going to testify as in how to answer my opinion. True that. Shout out to Banquet. Yo, mwah, mwah, mwah. Right, Denise?
And intense interest surrounded the first day of jury selection in the murder trial of Karmelo Anthony. Nearly 600 prospective jurors reported to the Collin County Courthouse Monday as jury selection got underway. Inside, Judge John Roach questioned prospective jurors about their news consumption, social media use, and whether they can keep an open mind.
It's emotional. It's no way around that.
Russell Wilson is a criminal defense attorney not involved with the case. He says
he's involved now. These two guys were, these two attorneys were watching this case from afar. These two attorneys were watching the case from afar. Maybe they went into the courtroom. Who knows?
Questions about social media and pretrial publicity are especially important in a high-profile case like this.
The real issue is, have they already?
I love this book, The Seat of the Soul. Y'all, listen, read this book, you guys. That's a good one. Yeah.
Already formed an opinion. Can they really keep their mind open to the facts?
Jurors were given a 3-page questionnaire that will be reviewed by attorneys and the court. While opening statements are still days away, Wilson expects self-defense to be a major issue in the case.
The law on use of deadly force or use of force in Texas, the person has to believe that there's a reasonable fear of death or serious bodily injury. And I think in most self-defense cases, the dispute is regarding the reasonableness of the fear.
Judge Roach said testimony in the case.
But we don't hear that. Could you imagine? We heard nothing about this. Nothing about this.
Will end no later than June 12th, with the trial expected to run from 9 a.m. until 6 p.m. each day. Attorneys now face the task of narrowing hundreds of potential jurors down to 12.
There is no court Tuesday, but attorneys will work to whittle down the jury pool to about.
Yo, this judge had a court on Saturday, and it was a full day, 9 to 6 or 8 to 6, whatever. This judge wanted this case to go away so fast. It's just crazy. But let me back it up. I want to hear him again. He didn't say much. Let's go back.
The law on use of deadly force or use of force in Texas, the person has to believe that there's a reasonable fear of death or serious bodily injury.
In Texas, the law is you have to believe that you're in fear for your death or bodily injury, right? Severe bodily injury. Severe. That's the law. Let's go back.
And I think in most self-defense cases, a reasonable fear. On use of deadly force or use of force in Texas, the person has to believe that there's a reasonable fear of death or serious bodily injury. And I think in most self-defense cases,
or serious bodily injury. In order for the jury to be able to say, okay, I'm a juror in this case, the attorney is fighting self-defense, I'm listening to the witness statements, I'm watching the footage. Now, I have to charge him. In order for me to believe there was self-defense, there has to be, Karmelo needs to tell me, Karmelo needs to show me, or the defense attorney needs to prove, the defense attorney would need to prove that there's reasonable fear, one, reasonable fear of death, and two, serious bodily injury. Neither was proven. Neither of those two was argued.
the dispute is regarding the reasonableness of the fear.
Judge Roach said testimony in the case will end no later than June 12th, with the trial expected to run from 9 a.m. until 6 p.m. each day. Attorneys now face the task of narrowing hundreds of potential jurors down to 12.
There is no court Tuesday, but attorneys will work to whittle down the jury pool to about 250 people. The judge told potential jurors they will be notified after 5 o'clock Tuesday about whether they need to show up Wednesday morning. At the Collin County Courthouse, Meredith Yeomans.
So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, they wrap that shit on Monday, 5 days. If it started Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, they were in court Saturday, then Monday, they wrapped this shit up. Conviction, sentencing, verdict on Monday. 5 days for a first-degree charge on a 19-year-old. I have a problem with that, guys. I have a problem with that. I think you guys should too if you have children. If you have children, I mean, this is not about black and white. Again, you should have a problem with this.
NBC5.
Okay, so the next one I'm going to show, let me see. Let me end it there. I think that's good enough. I wanted to.
Everyone loves chicken nuggets.
I wanted to go on.
But antibiotic?
Let me stop sharing and show my face. Okay. So I wanted to discuss the appeal process. I think I'll do another episode to discuss the appeal process. I believe that the Dream Team has their work cut out for them. I believe that it's an uphill battle. It's an uphill battle because not all appellate cases in Texas are won. There's a statistic out there that the likelihood that the appeal will be approved is not, it's not great. It's not. So I want to discuss the appeal process. I'll do that in another video, but I'll end this right here. This is a good note to end. I just wanted to highlight the Dream Team, and I'll leave it off there. Thank you guys so much for being here. I enjoy you guys. I love you guys so much. They had their minds made up. Yeah, for real. Denise, I thank you so much. A new subscriber here. I appreciate your discussions. Lucy, thank you. Bye, y'all. Have a good one.